hereby disserve.
First of all, I want to thank you guys for making sure that you're still here, so we have a quorum. Appreciate it. Need a resolution to approve the minutes of the last economic growth meeting. Evelyn, seconded by John.
Yes.
No changes, corrections? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, Ed, the agenda consists of you today.
You know, I had a chat with Wayne out, and both Wayne and Patricia and everybody is really busy with the CFAs that are going on. The one thing that I have noticed, and I've remarked back to ESD about this, is that we continue to get more inquiries, but they're principally coming from not-for-profit organizations, development corporations, museums, art groups, trails. All of those things are very, very important, but I'm noticing a significant drop-off in the private sector, and I think part of that we need to examine the overall process that's involved with this. From the time that you get a grant, and Evelyn's experienced this just with the time, by the time you get the grant letter in December of 2015, you're lucky if you have a contract by the beginning of 2017. And this makes it very difficult for the private sector who's planning on a project. So what they're trying to do is come up with a intermediate process where we can submit important economic development projects with the private sector in between the CFA process. And we're going to continue to work with Empire State Development relative to that issue, but there's a significant drop-off. I would say the majority, by far, of applications that are being submitted in this up region of Warren, Washington, northern Saratoga, are going to be from the what I'd call the not-for-profit area. There are some significant applications in dealing with the environment, engineering, and the waters of Lake George and some other areas that are very important, and I don't mean to downplay those areas, but we're not getting the interest from the business community as round one. This is round 5 to go forth, with that. We are gearing up for a couple of other important economic possibilities, and that is continuing to work on the cell and broadband for later this year. Before we can pin a date down, we're going to be needing to hear on the rules and regulations on the broadband and cell coverage. The difference between this year and prior years when Evelyn was applying is that they're really gearing the application toward how the money can be provided to the provider, such as Verizon, Prime Link, because the communities don't have their own monies to be able to set up their own broadband or cell companies in the area. And they're looking for basically a 5-to-1 coverage, which means that the Verizon or Prime Link or Time Warner would be required to put in the lion's share. And there's ongoing discussions in Albany on that issue, that perhaps there should be a little bit more money that could be allocated to the private sector. We know perfectly well that up in our North Country here, putting in a mile or two, you may not have that many homes, and that's where Prime Link and Verizon and others have said, unless you subsidize this, we're not going to provide that coverage. So that's what we're really trying to work on, and we're encouraging Empire State and New York Connect to look at that issue of where we can have more money provided to the private sector for this, in order for us to bring that coverage into the area. The other important item for upstate and Warren County is the infrastructure. There is still a separate pool of funding that is going to be available later this year for pure infrastructure, and that is your roads, your bridges, wastewater treatment plant facilities, water facilities, and again, the rules and regulations have not been detected for that as well. So those are kind of things. So the process of putting together applications from EDC, working with Wayne and Patricia, are going to continue through the fall. On a positive note, the latest survey, national survey was taken in identifying the top lakes in all 50 states. And guess what lake won?
Lake George.
Echo Lake. No. Lake George won, and they call it nicknamed Queen of the American Lakes. There's tons of fun to be had at the Adirondack Foothills Lake. In addition to playing on its beaches, renting a boat or chartering a fishing boat, visitors can book a ride on the Lake George steamboat, Minnehaha, one of the last steam pedal wheel boats in America. After some sun and fun, grab a cocktail or dinner at one of the many waterfront restaurants in the area. So I think this is very great. And again, when we say Lake George, it's really the greater Lake George region that benefits from that. So it's interesting to read the other lakes that have been designated, so I just thought I would pop that out to the members to share. Sure. Okay. There? Great. Okay.
Yeah, Frank's behind you.
Oh, I didn't even see.
Come up and join us.
Come on, Frank, come on up. Good, how are you? To keep the positive news going here, just on another, and again, surveys are surveys. If you do well, you like to promote those. If you tank on them, you say, well, that's just a survey, and we'll do better on another one. But it is important. We try to promote and publicize these things on our websites, but also when we're putting information together and we're talking about things, economic development. That's important to kind of bring up that we're getting some national recognition. I mean, Lake George gets it all the time, but it's good to hear that. Also, on another survey that was done through the small businesses and financing institutions and so forth around the state, there was an identification of where the best places are to start a small business in New York, and they listed number one, Suffern, which is right on the border of New Jersey area, to Garden City, which is in Nassau County, and again, just over the line from New York City. Mineola, another one in Nassau County. And number four is Glens Falls. And again, when they mean Glens Falls here, John's staring right at me with that. We're really talking about the greater Glens Falls, Warren County area to do business with. And this is significant because we're talking about small businesses. And again, with small businesses, you can be of any age. But what we really want to focus in on is attracting some of our younger generations to stay in our area, to start their businesses, to provide some help, as well as attracting new young individuals to our region to provide some assistance. So again, just to promote these things here. There you go. And anytime we get into discussion, we talk about clusters of economic development, and we know, meaning a cluster, significant areas. We can talk about the medical devices in the area of CR, BARD, and angiodynamics, which have a major influence in our area. We also can talk about the health and medical services between the Glens Falls Hospital and Hudson Headwaters, over 3,400 employees. We've focused on wood products in the paper industry, and many people talk about the tourism and hospitality. Well, it's kind of a seasonal, thing. It's a few months, and we know the efforts that are being made in all of the communities with the First Wilderness, but from Lake Luzerne to Thurman to Chestertown, we're all trying to increase the season. And it shows up, though, how tourism still is a major and remains a major factor in upstate and Warren County. The unemployment rate for June is at 4.6%. The unemployment last year was 5.4%. I think Gene could testify that this is a better year, correct?
No, it's a harder year to get employees.
Yeah, no, it's a harder year for employees, but it's a better year economically for the for the area. So I think anybody, when we start talking about tourism, and we have some great advocates when we run into Dave Kenny and others, they promote all of this. But for the rank and file, sometimes when people start saying, well, you know, it's only seasonal and it's only young people. That's not correct. And this bears itself out with the rate of employment, in our area. We actually, have a lower rate of unemployment, at this point than, than the collaborative metro areas, throughout, New York State. We're just a tad behind, Saratoga, Saratoga remains at 4.2%, regardless of what happens down there. While they say tourism and the tourism with the, track, a lot of their employees basically travel. NYRA, they move, from, Belmont, they move to, Saratoga, and then they move, you know, back again. Obviously, Saratoga Performing Arts Center has some, but this is, again, positive news for us. Some of the people doing grant applications don't like to see positive unemployment because, there are some grants that are focused in on unemployment, but, for a person that's looking for work, it certainly, bodes well for us. So, I just point that out, and that leads me into just another final brief comment on the labor, is that, we are going to be, commencing our third and final class for the EPA job training, at Local 773, beginning in, early, September. We'll be having an orientation session up at the, Department of, Labor in early September. We review the applications, and the class will start like the third week of September, and will conclude sometime in October. We then, hopefully, will be able to successfully, receive another grant, for our county, and that would be available a year from now. That's the best, circumstances. We'll have another class of between 20 and 25, and both classes have seen a good variety, of, people from all through Warren County. Our last group had, some folks from Washington County, and a couple from, northern Saratoga area as well.
Have they all been placed in jobs?
We'd like to have 100%, but it's kind of like batting 1,000. It's difficult. We have, the first class out of 23, 17 have, jobs, and out of the second class of 20, 14 have, jobs. For a variety of reasons, some of those individuals, it didn't match up with, a job, or, they take a summer job which doesn't count toward our count. Some of them take a job, and, we will be working with them. We're required to keep track of all of our graduates for a period of 5 years, through, tracking, just to see where we are with the, results on that. And again, the key program is we have that 40-hour HAZWOPER program, along with a 10-hour OSHA. We also have some hazardous waste, and we're looking to put into a CDL, with a driver, condition of hazardous materials. And we're not talking about driving a major, few-ton truck here. We're talking about those that are working for contractors, in pickup trucks and so forth, that need to have, smaller jobs in the area that are involved with asbestos and so forth. They're technically supposed to have a driver, with the, CDL, and the, stamp that say they're able to identify and work on asbestos, removals, into those, particular, areas. I want to just mention here, while some of you are members of our loan review committee, we've had, to date, 3 loans, in 2015. We will be conducting, last year we did it sporadically, but we're going to be conducting, site visitations to all our current loan applicants. We're sending a letter out and telling them that during this, late summer, fall, we'll be visiting them, just to see how things are. We'll also be out there to verify their, employment issues and see if there's any, issues that we might be able to take, care of. And while that falls under the domain of the LDC, I think it's important for our, main committee here to understand that we need to, work with our, individuals. Also, we're going to be, finalizing these applications, as I said, by Friday of this week. And those are kind of some highlights. One of the things that I would like, looking ahead a little bit for the rest of this year, is to sit down with the town of Queensbury and John and our airport and really pursue the question of available land for airport-related development as well as non-airport-related development, and really pinpoint the process down, pinpoint the approval process, get the input of John and Queensbury Planning Board, if that's required. I just realized what I said there, but I think it's important to work that process out so we can promote some of that land in the area. And I think that's very helpful for us to do going forward. We're continuing to work as Cary Park gets ready for that flow of sewer. That becomes a very valuable parcels of property on the west side of the Northway, so that we really now have two sides of the Northway to promote with our utilities, Tech Metals on the east side, and on the west side we've got Cary Park. And we're really getting much more inquiries now from Global Foundries on looking at this area and access. You know, they're beginning to understand it's not that far from Malta by exit 12. Some people can make it down in 20 minutes, others it may take a little bit more than that. But I think we really want to focus on the last half of this year and obviously going forward on that development, as well as looking for other large parcels of property that are nearby Interstate 87, because we're getting a lot of inquiries for larger parcels of property for a little bit larger development through the area. We've been working with Kevin and your people up there, and that's where we run into the issue with utilities. But we really need to parcel those out as well. And also on some legislative areas, one of the concerns that Gene has raised in terms of employment is looking to see how we can take some of the individuals from the unemployment roles and put them into the employment situation, and providing some tax credits, particularly in the hospitality and tourism area. Gene, did you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
I've been fighting for that for years. I mean, we gotta change this unemployment structure, because if you're, you know, I believe in fully, if you're healthy enough, they should make them work 2 days a week. In my business, I hire 10. And we're bringing in foreign students to come and fill the void in the summer, and they take the money and go back to countries that hate us. We got people sitting on porches rocking and collecting unemployment. And I think we should make a change. Not that you're forcing people to work, but give them an option to come out a couple of days, especially with all the hotels, motels, bed and breakfasts, restaurants, all the attractions we have around here. Warren County can employ a lot of people, even if it's just 2 days a week, and then they can collect 3 days from the state. You know, and I believe fully, if you've got somebody that works hard, you say, look, get off unemployment, I'll pay you a little extra, stay with me. And I think a lot of business people would think that way.
And I think that becomes even more important as efforts are made to continue to expand our shoulder season. Where are those people are going to come to be employees, because the students aren't going to be able to come back in the wintertime. So I think that's something that we need to look upon and have some impact. Finally, we're going to continue to work with the area businesses that utilize the rail on a freight situation. We want to increase that, but I do want to indicate that we do have a group of citizens that are interested in looking at the rail land for bike and or pedestrian rather than rail. And I think we need, EDC needs to be able to meet with the group to explain our position, that we want to be able to work with the group, and I think both groups can work together. But I think that the freight rail is important for our region, and not to give up that. Certainly in the city of Glens Falls, you can imagine now if there was freight rail going through the neighborhood areas, there would be quite a bit of an outrage, because it went right through all of the neighborhoods. But as we get out into, the country area, I think that there still is a valid justification economically for freight rail in our area here. But more than willing to see if we can sit down and work, and seem to have some reasonable expectations, so we'll meet on that. But that is an issue. I know the county has invested a lot of time and money into the rail, and we want to continue to work with them on that, so.
Well, you missed it today at DPW, Ed Ellis was here.
Mhm.
And he kinda indicated a few things he wanted to do, that it sounded like he's gonna redo his contract for another 5 years.
Yeah.
So, we're worried about that,
Mhm.
because if they couldn't make it around here, not another,
Right.
it's tough somebody else, and then
Right.
that's why these groups are working on trying to rip up the tracks.
Right.
There's a lot of money in them tracks, I tell you. There was an estimate of $3 million about 4 years ago, just track work in Warren County, just metal. So, you get a lot of money to make pavement, pave it all the way up.
But I think,
But I think they're
there
gonna stay.
there's some
I think they're gonna
reasonable
stay.
people, within the group that are looking to, there's no question, I think there would be some great economic benefit of being able to, we know that's where tourism is going, whether it's you go out, you go to Luzerne, you go up to North River, you see where everybody is coming out on the weekends and going down the rivers and so forth, and, the hiking, the bicycling, this would, extend, our abilities as well. So I think somehow we need to kind of look and figure out how we can, coexist, with one another. This just kind of reminds me of the days of the horses versus the train out in the, out in the Midwest, a little bit, for that to, happen. So those are some of the, activities and works that we are, working on as we go, forward. I'm also, continuing to work with the individual towns and undertaking the meetings with the supervisors or other groups that desire to talk about economic development. I'm available to do that, and had a nice evening in Stony Creek the other night, and we'll be joining John in August, and more than happy, Evelyn, to come with my vest and protective gear into your town as well. But my goal is to get to every town, and certainly I feel that I'm not a stranger going into the town just once a year into Thurman or Stony Creek or Warrensburg in the areas here. So any questions?
I don't have any questions, but Ed started the meeting by saying that he sees a slowdown in new business activity in the area. And
I meant that in relationship to CFA applications, but.
okay, well, I'm concerned about everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Right now, there's two things that bother me a lot. One is the fast food minimum wage of $15 an hour, and the other one is I see that they're talking now about the tax cap going below 1% next year, and those are two things that are going to affect economic development, I think, in this area. What do you guys think of, Fred isn't here today, I wish he was, but what do you think about asking Fred if that's something that legislative might want to address?
Yeah, I think what's happening with fast food is that McDonald's is ready, and some other fast food companies are ready to roll out in test markets probably next year, robots that will be handling portions of flipping the hamburgers, doing the fries, and doing the drinks. There still will be live bodies there, but they are moving very rapidly to automation, just as another step how they proceed, but also I think that this $15 an hour is certainly going to have an impact in those particular areas. There's going to be pressure on the rest of the legislature now and the governor to add other job classifications to the fast food. I mean, you can think here right now where there might have been better justification for increases, and I think this is going to put the pressure so that the minimum wage is not a dead issue. I just envision this in 2016 of being even more active. And then you're also gonna get into reducing the number of hours that a person would be eligible for healthcare benefits in New York State. That's also on the agenda, principally coming out of metropolitan New York City. That does have an impact in upstate New York, and that's gonna be very difficult for small businesses to exist.
There was an article in the paper last week about the Fountains place down here at Martha's. And essentially, he was saying that, you know, that won't apply to him, but his employees are gonna go down the road to McDonald's and get a job there and pay him a lot more than he's paying.
Yeah.
Well, Don Coyote in the paper the other day hit it right on the head. Like, your kids could be making more money working at McDonald's than you're working in the private sector. People that work $12, $13, $14 an hour.
Right.
You know, flipping hamburgers, they'll be making more than their parents. It's just, I mean, it's gotta come. I know it's gonna come, but it can't go from here to here. It's gotta, that's what they gotta look out for.
This is a-
You get the same problem in all the towns, and
Yep.
even the county. I mean, if somebody can, you know, come from Thurman making $16 an hour, if I wanna pay him 17, you know, but what happens, it causes a problem with your other employees, saying, well, you brought this guy in, or this woman in for, it took me 10 years to get to $16 an hour. It's gonna be I see it.
The one positive light that I see out of this is the first time that New York State has recognized differential in minimum wage between downstate and upstate. This has been an agenda item for many of the upstate legislators for a number of years, is because the cost of living is different in upstate versus downstate. The minimum wage, when it increases, should be at different rates for upstate versus downstate. So if there's a little bit of positiveness coming out of this, this is the first time that the state has recognized a justification for splitting the wage off, which could be helpful down the road. But right now, it's going to be an adjustment that we have to look at.
All right, any other business? Motion adjourned. Evelyn? John? All in favor? Motion carries. All right, we'll